From Seco Future Farm, today's innovations, tomorrow's solutions.
Hello and welcome back to Future Farm. I'm your host Jim Robinson, and here we are today out at Future Farm talking about soybeans. I'm here with John Novak from Syngenta Seedcare, and we're going to talk a little bit about sudden death syndrome today. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to be out here, and soybeans is one of my favorite subjects.
Excellent. So John, across a lot of Nebraska, Iowa, and a lot of other geographies, we are getting calls about sudden death syndrome. And first of all, is it sudden death syndrome that we're seeing out in the field? I mean, it's not always the case.
Correct, and it didn't take us too long of digging in these fields behind us, and we saw a lot of different examples out there just in about a 15-minute evaluation. So we've got some good examples to show our teams today here.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, first and foremost, everybody tends to recognize SDS as the symptomology on the leaves. So the leaves have that kind of clear symptomology of you've got a green leaf with maybe some brown spots on the inside and then yellowing around those, so that halo around the brown spots. But sudden death isn't the only thing that causes those issues. So what else did we find here at this field?
Well, the first one, we had the symptomology on this plant here, and it was a plant that, you know, when we saw the top of it, I was like, man, pretty excited. Hey, we got a great example of SDS. We got the interveinal chlorosis, and there was a couple leaves that kind of had fallen off because it was dead. And when we came in here, I'm gonna see if I can get back to this, but when we opened this up, we found kind of a dead spot with a little critter in there.
Yeah.
And you know, we identified that with stem borer. So really, you know, in this reality here, you know, the above ground symptoms that we had that related it to SDS, you know, was probably a little bit further diagnosed down the road with stem borer. So stem borer is definitely one that can look like SDS from above ground symptoms.
Absolutely. Yeah, so stem borer, you know, in this area, we've had some issues with stem borers over the last 5 or 6 years. So not terribly surprised to see it. But, you know, we also had an event that happened about 2 weeks ago. And so we have a great example of how that manifested itself in that interveinal sclerosis. So what's the next one we have?
So as we look at this one here, the biggest thing that we noticed here was I don't know what you want to call this necessarily, but it's definitely some scarring and some browning, and then we got a little bit of white on there. And the plant was, you know, fully engaged in the plant, but just probably leaned over a little bit. And it's healthy, but it's definitely scarred up and had some issues with it. And you know, when you looked at this plant, I know the thought process here is when this happened, it basically shut off that plant's ability to transfer nutrients and water through the root mass. And so what we're starting to see on the top is dead leaves. And these leaves here are really kind of basically very similar of what we're seeing with SDS as well.
Exactly. So this wind event that we had just about 2 weeks ago really leaned over a lot of plants, and in some cases, as we see with this one, actually broke part of the stem, interrupting the xylem's ability to push water and nutrients up to those leaves. So again, we're seeing interveinal chlorosis and issues. And I think we're starting to see a bit of a trend between the stem borer, the partial breakage of the stem, and then eventually as we get into some of these other actual diseases that can manifest similarly to SDS. So what are a couple of the diseases that aren't SDS that look like SDS?
So, you know, the ones that I always call out when someone says, hey, do you have SDS? Stem borer is the first one that I always ask, and then whether, you know, potentially brown stem rot. And the biggest difference that we see with brown stem rot is actually taking a plant and splitting that open. And so this is, we haven't pre-split this one yet, guys, but this one here again has symptomology of what we think has SDS, very sure and fine symptoms of it. And so what I always recommend to people is going in here and splitting this plant open. And then when you split it open, so when I did open this one up here, normally if you have brown stem rot, this pith will be completely brown inside of here. This one here is white, fairly healthy, But as you can see, this one here would be diagnosed more with SDS.
Yep. So that brown stem, once you split it open, is the indicator for brown stem rot, as the name implies. And there's one more disease that can, as of today, this manifests itself similarly to brown stem rot and sudden death. But when you go out and look in the field, you'll actually see red down around the crown. Yeah. Thus the name red crown rot.
Yes, and that'll be one here in Nebraska that it's going to probably take a little bit to get here yet, fingers crossed, but we're definitely starting to see it in Iowa and Illinois and Indiana, and there's been confirmation of it. So that'll be something our growers need to keep an eye on in the future as well.
Absolutely. So let's focus in a little bit on sudden death syndrome. So we do have some sudden death syndrome here in this field. We found a couple plants that have kind of your classic symptoms of sudden death with the interveinal chlorosis. You split the stem, you don't see stem borer, you don't see brown stem rot, and so you can pretty reliably say this is probably sudden death. Yep. Now, what can we do to manage sudden death? Because right now, this time of year, there's nothing we can do about it, right?
Yeah. So when people talk to me about SDS, the big things that I point out to them is really, we start managing SDS in the fall. And one of the biggest things that I like to talk to guys about is saying, hey, if you have SDS, soybean cyst nematode is also correlated to it. So I usually encourage my guys to say, hey, let's take some fall samples for soybean cyst nematodes. Reach out to your extension agent, work with your local university, and take some samples. And what is actually surprising out there is the fact of how many acres that guys haven't covered in a while and are finding SCN numbers at a really high rate. So SCN is correlated to SDS. And the biggest reason why is the SCN can do damage, create infection spots, and once those infections are created, the SDS, known as sudden death syndrome, Fusarium vigor, clean that up for me. That's a big word up for me. Fusarium vigiforme. Did I get close on that, Jim?
That's awfully close. I don't know if I can do it any better.
Okay, well, thank you. But so it's really a Fusarium disease that gets into the plant, and the SCN creates an infection. So would you ask me, hey, what do we do for management? Like I said, I'm going to go back and say it's fall of the year. Sample soybean fields and do it consistently. So if you're going to sample soybean fields, continue to sample soybean fields. If you say, hey, I want to go sample a cornfield that's going to soybeans, make sure that's consistent. Based off your results, I would work with your local team to pick the right varieties that go into those fields. So if we know we have SDS or we've had a history of SDS, that SDS is probably going to impact you in another year. So variety selection is number one important. Yep. And so when we look at our varieties, we want to pick a strong, tolerant variety that has SDS resistance built into it. And then the second thing that we can really do is use a high quality seed treatment such as Saltro to help protect against that. Ironically enough, Saltro brings in both protection for SDS and SCN. So kind of starts with the fall and then making sure we see our plan through all the way up to planting.
Absolutely, and that's a great set of points. So, within our lineup, we rate our soybean varieties for sudden death syndrome, and so anything that would be a 7 or above would be something that we would say was strong for SDS. But then pairing it with something like Saltro, a seed treatment like Saltro, to help control it or mitigate any issues we may have. Now, there's some new technology coming through in the pipeline as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so before we get to that, one other point I do want to bring up is, if we have strong enough SDS, it's not like, we're going to completely eradicate it. Whether it's SCN or SDS, the goal there is to help manage it, protect that plant, get bigger root masses off. As we go into this, you just asked me about, hey, what's the new technology that's coming here? And we are excited within Syngenta, where we got fingers crossed that we're going to have approval any day soon. But the technology is going to be Victrato technology powered by Timerian. And so it's going to be kind of our next generation of SDHIs for knockout control of SDS and SCN. So as we think about our brand ladder, for those of you guys that have been using Saltro, might be a great opportunity, or if you have heavy nematodes or higher SDS pressure, Victrato is going to be a great place for that as we move forward.
Oh, that's outstanding. So Victrato will do a lot of the same things that Saltro will do, but just turned up to 11.
Yeah.
Is it?
So yeah, and still a lot to learn about the product, but a couple of the other things to really kind of focus on, which is really unique for seed treatment, is we're going to bring in some other diseases. So with that, we're going to bring in frog eye and septoria and a couple of those other ones that are going to help us, and it's really just based around early season. It's not going to be a replacement for a fungicide, but the reality is how can we get these beans off to a better start? The biggest difference between Saltro and Victrado is the tightness of the bond in regards to how it attacks the molecule, the pest, the fusarium, and additionally the SCN. So we feel that it's going to be more efficient, and it's going to be harder to attack. It's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be a tighter bond, which should give us better protection.
Oh, that's outstanding. And so the use rates that are going to be recommended for Victrado are going to be really easy to use with and compatible with other seed treatments. And so by combining that with high quality fungicide and insecticide for the rest of your seed treatment needs, we should be able to, as you mentioned, really identify which fields have a history of SDS issues, select the right varieties, add a product like Victrado in if we expect really high or tough situations for SDS or SCN, and that'll be our best opportunity to succeed in those fields, right?
100%, and with Syngenta Seedcare products, our formulation and our use rates is something that we always strive to make sure that we have nailed down before we launch any product to the field. So right now we're kind of waiting on, we got everything kind of ready to roll, waiting for registration from the EPA, and so hopefully this will be a product that we can start to see here locally very soon.
Absolutely, and once there is registration, assuming it comes through in short order here, you'll see some information from us at Streamline Ag and Rob Seco, and also from Syngenta about this product as
Correct,
well.
yes. So anxiously waiting the approval.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that, and thank you so much for joining us today, John.
It was great to catch up with you guys. It was a beautiful day out here at the farm.
Thank you.